Hey guys, welcome to the last round recap of the Yurtayev Memorial. As you may see, I'm back home already, recording this recap. It was a fascinating game. I was playing on the first board of the tournament. I was playing the tournament leader, a very talented young Uzbek player, Fakhreddin Sujayev Umarhon. He used to be the junior champion of Uzbekistan, and this year also he played at the men's super final of the Uzbekistan championship alongside with top grandmasters such as Sindarov, for example, who is rated 2700, Vahidov around 2600, and he played with such monsters even though he's rated around 2000 something. And sometimes he put up very decent resistance, sometimes he outplayed them, so he's a very talented, underrated player. He went almost without, like, he won almost all of his games in this tournament. He lost just one and made one draw, I think, and the rest he just won, demolished everyone. So obviously I knew that this is a challenging opponent, but I wanted to fight him and I wanted to defeat him because I already defeated the rating favorite in this tournament, the FIDE master. So I was feeling quite confident that I can, if I play the opening decently this time and get a playable position, then I can put up a fight. And I did. Let's see how it went. Also, by the way, a quick teaser. My opponent played this game at 96% accuracy according to the computer. Crazy. He's very good. No mistakes according to chess.com's engine. But I also played quite well. Let's see. e4, knight f6. He surprised me by going for the Alekhine Defense. Usually he plays the Sicilian, and I was heavily preparing the lines that I play against the Sicilian, but he surprised me. But I know some things about the Alekhine Defense, and I know that it's not the best opening for black. There is a reason why top players don't play it usually, because white gets some advantage. e5, c4, this is a 4 pawns attack, the most principled way to combat the Alekhine's defense, using the fact that black's knight spent 3 tempi moving around the board, and I'm taking the center. So he takes, this is all theory, everything here is theory, and here he goes bishop g4. He spends another tempo because he put the bishop first on f5 and then on g4, but it's also logical because he wants to pin me and he wants to put pressure on my center. This is the main idea of this system for black. Here I go bishop e2. This is all theory. I remember this all. He takes, I take with the pawn, because if I take with the bishop, he will take my pawn, and I don't want to give him the pawn. So I take with the pawn. Yes, I weaken my king, and he can give me a check, but I just block. So here I'm still in my analysis. I'm still in my opening files. I was not preparing for the Alekhine's defense, but I used to refresh this information because Andrew, my opponent for training games, sometimes plays the Alekhine, so I had to refresh it. And I remembered that here I should be much better if I just put my queen on d2, exchange the queens, and I have this massive center. I will go f4 next, and I also have the two bishops advantage. His bishop is stuck. If I go a3, for example, he will not have any squares for the bishop, just e7, and I can block it totally. And this knight is not too well positioned. So I was feeling really confident, and I remembered this line. I remembered this line with the taking on f3 and check and blocking, and I remembered queen f4 is the move, and I remembered queen d2. Except for one thing, I confused the move order. I forgot that first I have to go c5, and then take, and then go queen d2, exchange, and this is the position that happens, where black will suffer for the rest of the game. Well, the computer gives on low depth plus 0.3 for white, but on high depth, I see it on the part of the screen that you don't see, plus 0.75. So already a big advantage for white because of this massive pawn center and because of the fact that this bishop is blocked. It can go to g7, but here it will also be blocked. It can go to h6, but it will also be blocked there. And black is very passive and lacks space. So that's what I should have done, but I confused the move order. I don't know, too careless. It was the last round. I was a bit tired, maybe a bit too over-enthusiastic that I'm playing the last game. And I went queen d2, and I forgot that he can take here and just castle on, and I lose a pawn. This is such a tragic mistake. A very important lesson for me, even if I think that I have memorized the ins and outs of some line, still I will from now on take time in the opening to make sure to double check that I'm not blundering anything, because here I just lose a pawn. I can do anything because 94 or 95 will happen because of this pin. And I felt so stupid. Here I spent like 20 minutes thinking about what I should do because not only do I lose a pawn, but I lose a very important one on d4 most likely. And here I cannot go c5, obviously, because he won't go knight d5. He'll just take me, and I'm pinned, and I'm lost. So c5 doesn't work here, and I cannot defend this pawn, because knight b5, a6, and it's all over. And if I go king e3, I'm blocking my bishop, and he'll just take with a knight, and will threaten knight c2, a fork, and it's already a losing position. So I was thinking what to do here. I was thinking whether to go rook a d1, that was one idea. Also maybe f4 to protect this pawn and give up that pawn. But I didn't like anything of that. And then I found a move that I was satisfied with at least a little bit, knight e4. And the computer agrees it's the top engine move. On low depth, it says that it's minus 0.67, but on high depths, it considers black to be practically winning, but black has to find some good moves here. So at first I thought that bishop b4 is very unpleasant, and I didn't know what to do here, because if I go here, he'll take, and it's all collapsing. But turns out bishop b4 check is a mistake, because I go here, and yes, he can take here, but I'll just draw back. Now his knight is hanging, he has to go back, and then c5. And turns out his bishop is just caught here, because I want to go a3, b4, and he will have to give up the bishop for some pawns, and it's around equal. So that would have been good for me. I didn't know that at the time. I thought bishop b4 is the best move, but I anticipated knight takes d4 because it's the most logical. And here I calculated something before going for this variation, and I'm very proud that this all happened. Takes, check, king drops back, attacking the rook drops back, and I go b4 here, a very important move, because I want to push a4, a5, but if I go a4 here, dislodging this knight, trying to dislodge this knight, make it go to the ugly post on a8. He has a5, and the dark squares belong to him. As they say, all your squares belong to us. Did you know this meme? So b4 is an important first step, because now I can go a4, a5. Actually, the best move for black here is to give up this pawn with a5. The computer suggests this. And if I take, he checks me and puts the knight on c5. And these pawns, yes, I've got back one pawn, but my bishop is horrible, and his bishop will be great, positioned on this diagonal, and maybe here, attacking the rook and the pawn. So that would have been the best way for him to proceed, but he didn't do that. He went h6, preventing some knight g5 jumps, and here I eagerly went a4. And now I really liked my position. I started to feel that I'm back in the game, and the computer practically agrees. Well, at least I'm not losing anymore, minus 0.6. So I have some chances, some counterplay, because I want to advance with a5. This knight has to find some square, so he draws back, because now he can go to d7. And here I anticipated this move, and I thought this pawn of mine is weak, and also probably later on he will have to go g5 to put the bishop on g7. And if he goes g5 before I go f4, I cannot go f4, and this bishop gets stuck behind this pawn. So I decided that f4 is an absolutely must move. Is there such a phrase? Well, maybe I should change my pseudonym from Mustreader to Must Mover. F4, and here it's a top engine choice, by the way. And here he nonetheless goes g5. He sacrifices the pawn, and this is a very strong idea. I underestimated it at the time it was played. So I thought that he will develop normally, maybe go g6, maybe bishop e7, and then I have my plan with a5. He drops back with the knight. Then probably I advance even more, try to create some counterplay, or maybe I go h4 to completely prevent the g5 idea. And I thought I'm back in the game. Yes, I'm down a pawn, but it's opposite color bishops, which favor the attacking side. I can be attacking here, I have more space, blah, 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 blah. And here completely ruined all these ideas of mine by going g5. Actually, it's not the top engine choice, but it's a great dynamic idea. So obviously I cannot take. Well, I can, but then I will have a bad position after bishop g7. So his idea is to destroy this pawn chain of mine, because it's a very important pawn chain. And I went bishop h5, by the way, which is a top engine move. I'm proud that I found it, because if I take, he goes bishop g7, he's threatening taking on e5. And not only is it losing a pawn for me, but also losing an exchange. So if I block, for example, something like this, he'll just take, and he will probably be able to activate the rook via h3, or maybe put pressure via h6, maybe put one rook on h3, the other on h8, and take this pawn. He will have great initiative and practically winning position. So taking on g5 is out of the question. And I thought, you know what? I have to activate my bishop. I have to sacrifice my pawn in turn. He's sacrificing me, giving me his pawn. I'm not taking it. I'm giving him mine. Bishop h5. And also, he has a pawn chain of his own, which is not easy to defend. If he goes rook h7, for example, I have knight f6. He has to put his rook on this ugly g7 square. Or maybe I can first take and then go knight f6. Both look logical. If he goes rook d7, again, I have knight f6. I have first a5. Now he doesn't have the d7 square. He has to go back. And now knight f6, and I'm even better. Much better already. Although I'm down a pawn, but his pieces are all passive. So bishop h5 effectively wins this pawn. He cannot defend it. He should not defend it. Well, rook h7 is a move, but it's too passive. So he decides, you know what? Okay, I'll take your pawn. I decide, you know what? I'll take your pawn. He says, okay, but I'll take your pawn on e5. And it's an interesting tactical skirmish. Turns out I've actually practically equalized, because here the computer gives some series of moves that give me equality. Rook a d1 is the correct move. Not an easy one to find, because I can take a pawn with check, and I really want to do that, and that's what I did. But this leads to some advantage for black. What I should have done is rook a to d1. And if he checks me, I go here, and I will have time to take his pawn later on. I'm down 2 pawns currently, but he cannot defend the pawn on e6, so I will take it. And I will have some counterplay that gives me equality. I didn't know that at the time, of course. So after bishop g7, I took his pawn with check. He dropped back, and I went knight f6, a very active looking move. And I'm blocking his bishop. I don't want him to take on e5. I thought that he has rook e8 ideas, and actually the computer agrees that this is the best move, because if I take, he will be able to take here and win back the rook, or first take here. But he found another good idea. He put the rook on f8 instead of e8, pressuring on f6. And now he also has ideas of taking 2 times and winning my rook on a1. For example, if I do nothing like h3, he can take with the rook. He can also take with the bishop and win the pawn outright, and he will have a nice position. So I have to do something here, and I decide, you know what, I have to initiate counterplay. I go a5. Because this was my idea a long time ago. I also don't want to protect this pawn with my rook all the time, because the knight is pressuring it, and I want to create some attack, because without counterplay I will probably be lost. So he takes here, I take, and he takes. And here I calculated for a long time a series of different variations. So I calculated that I could take, he could take, and I could take either this or that pawn. If I take this pawn, I win back 1 pawn, and material is equal, but I didn't like the position after rook a3 check. I have to drop back, because if I go forward, he will mate me. Rook d8 check, rook e5 checkmate. which reminds us of the importance of king safety even in endgames. So after a rook e3 check, I have to drop back like king c2, for example, and then he can go rook g8 and threaten some infiltration on g2, and I think it's a very unpleasant position. I'm practically losing. He also has this menacing pawn on f4, so I didn't want to go for this in this position. Also, I could have taken here and taken here with a check, making him put his king on a8. And I thought this is maybe better, but he will eventually win this pawn. And again, there is the problem of rook e3 and my king being weak. And the computer agrees that black is very much better here. So I decided against this after calculating. Then I thought I can just drop back with my bishop. And he has to retreat with a knight. And now I put the bishop on this nice f3 square, both blockading the pawn, not allowing it to go forward, and pressuring this b7 square. I want to push, I want to attack, maybe I want to go to b1 and try to open up the b file, or maybe I want to go to e1 and infiltrate g1 and infiltrate on the 7th rank. These are the ideas that I have. And I go, he goes a6 because he doesn't want to allow a6 for me. It's also the top engine choice. My opponent was playing brilliantly this game. Kudos to him. I go rook e1. I'm anticipating the fact that he can go here and then I can infiltrate later on. He goes here, and I don't want to infiltrate right away because that will lose a tempo to knight f5, attacking my rook. So I develop another rook, rook g1, and the position is practically equal if I find some only moves. So he goes knight f5, top engine move again. He wants to put the knight either on e3 or h4. And here I already started gaining low on time, and I quickly made the move rook g4, which is an inaccuracy. The best move, which I initially intended to make, is rook e4, activating the rook, attacking the pawn, and the difference is that after rook g4, he goes knight e3 and he blocks this rook from infiltration, at least for the time being. And with rook e4, if he goes here, then I still have this rook e7 and rook g7 idea, and I'm equal. But I thought that rook e4 in this position, I decided against rook e4, I went rook g4, because I was afraid of knight h4 attacking my bishop, making it move. And then I thought that he will eventually be able to push the pawn and probably have winning chances. I completely forgot that this knight would hang in all those variations, so he actually is not able to push the pawn, and I can equalize here. So, for example, he will have at some point to go knight g6, because this will be hanging, and I will again block the pawn. And yes, we can repeat moves, but that's the most that he can get here. Probably he can try to infiltrate on the d file, but I will prevent it somehow. So yeah, I missed this in time trouble. Instead of this, here I went rook g4. It's not losing, but I'm again worse, because he puts the knight on e3, blocking my rook. I go rook g7. I was hoping that this could help me with some counterplay, because now I want to go b5, b6, open up this file, the 7th rank, which might get dangerous for black. But he puts his rooks on the d file here. I push my b pawn. Actually, here was the last chance for me to equalize. Maybe not equalize, but at least have chances for a draw. I should have gone c5, preventing his idea of doubling up. But I thought I have no time for c5. I have to act fast. I went b5, trying to demolish him on the queen side. And once he doubles up, I just go bishop e4. And I thought I'm protecting everything. I cannot just go forward here in this position because he's threatening this. And if I go here, he has this. And I will get mated eventually, probably in this variation. So I have to protect on d3, but that doesn't help, unfortunately, because he has rook e8, another great move. He's attacking my bishop, and if the bishop retreats, for example, bishop f3, then he has knight d5 check. And once I take the knight, he has this and he is up an exchange and a pawn, and I'm losing, of course. So this is very unpleasant. I cannot drop back with the bishop, unfortunately. But I have to proceed with my plan. I go b6 here, and here there is a trap. If he takes the bishop, I mate him on the back rank because my pawn restricts him, and he can drop back with the rook, but I'll just take it. He can drop back with another rook, I'll just take it, and this is checkmate. So he cannot take my bishop for the time being because of this powerful pawn on b6, but unfortunately he can just take, and turns out he's winning here. So I take with check, and last important move, you do not go king a8 now because rook a7 is a discovered check that wins the rook and the game, but of course you go rook king c8 here. And now there are no discoveries. My bishop is hanging. Also, once the bishop gets taken, this rook will be hanging. So I calculated here that if I retreat with the bishop, he has knight d5 check again, or knight d1 check. Both are good. So knight d5 check. If I take, he takes, and I'm down in exchange. And I thought here that I have to take here, but he takes, and this endgame is losing for me. Unfortunately, he's stopping all my pawns. He can even give up his rook. If I go b7, he can give up his rook for the pawn and the bishop, and he will have a winning pawn endgame because he has this a pawn, passed pawn, and this f passed pawn. So I calculated this. I was sad about this, and I decided, okay, this doesn't work. Bishop f3 doesn't work because of knight d5 or knight d1 check. So I decided, okay, I'll sacrifice this bishop. I took the pawn. This is also losing, but at least I tried to do something. Here I cannot go c5, unfortunately, because knight d5 again is very strong. So I have to go rook g1. He takes the b pawn. I infiltrate. I try to make him make a mistake. If he leaves, for example, this square, then I maybe will check him. Although even then he will escape to d8 and it's all good. But I tried to create some threats at least. He goes f3, I go rook f7. Now I'm threatening this, which will be a ladder mate. But of course he doesn't hang ladder mate. He checks me. I go here. He checks me again. I go here. And he just drops back. And now there are no more checks. This check is prevented by this rook. This check is prevented by that rook. So he will just win. If I take the pawn, he just will check me and check me again, and I win the rook and the game. So here I have nothing to do. He will just take another pawn of mine and queen this pawn probably, or mate me, maybe go rook here and create a mating attack of his own. So here I just resigned because this is a position where resistance is futile. Unfortunately, I lose this final game. I finished the tournament with 4.5 out of 5 points, which is not a bad result. I've still won against the rating favorite in the tournament, the FIDE Master. I've gained some rating points. I think I'm now back over 1900 FIDE rating. So this is some good news, but I could have won much more games. But for some mistakes, unforced errors that I made, I will work on them. You know, as they say, I think Michael Jordan said that he, to become the greatest of all time, he had to lose very many games. He had to have like 10,000 bad shots in official games, basketball games. So the same goes for chess. You have to lose a lot of games, a bunch of games to become good at it. And I'm now on this path. Sometimes it's painful, but still it's inspiring for me. Thank you for staying till the end with all the recaps. Check out other recaps if you missed them. There were some crazily interesting games there, some of which I'm really proud of. I think I've improved my level. The problem is that rating deflation in Central Asia impacts ratings of all players, especially young players. So I didn't get a huge rating boost, although I feel like I've boosted my rating. Maybe I should go to Europe and play some tournaments there and compare. I think I'll do that. So see you in the next videos. Lots of content coming up. So stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, and hit the bell button. And write a comment, please, because I hate it when there are no comments under my videos. I'd love to see some reaction of yours. See you in the next one. I'll go get some rest. Bye-bye.